Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Saturday, January 9th, 2021. First things first, I apologize for this video getting out really late. I had a pretty hectic day, so I'm trying to get this out by the time it reaches 12 a.m. on the East Coast. If you're on the West Coast, it's probably not too late for you, but chances are you're probably seeing this around 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time. But today we're going to be talking about the Arizona Republican Party and the Maricopa County Republican Committee and how they voted to censure Cindy McCain and have plans to censure Jeff Flake, the former Republican senator. Now, looking at this idea that Cindy McCain and Jeff Flake are rhinos is something that the Republican Party, most notably the Trump wing of the Republican Party, has been pushing for the past 2 years. And the major reason for that is because they view these type of Republicans as enemies. They view the McCain-Romney-esque Republicans as a vision of the past, and they look to Donald Trump as he leads them to the future. Now, Donald Trump may not be the best candidate to lead the Arizona GOP. Under his watch, the state itself flipped to the Democratic Party. Democrats took control in terms of House of Representative seats, and the Democrats went from 0 Senate seats to 2. So, looking at Arizona, the Republican Party seems to be pushing away from the only candidates and the only recognizable names that have won in Arizona, at least in modern political history. Jeff Flake was first elected not too long ago. 2012 was the first year that Jeff Flake was elected to the United States Senate. He came across as a conservative nonetheless. I mean, yes, a conservative at that, but he was someone that was able to win in the state of Arizona. Donald Trump was not in 2020. Now, Jeff Flake didn't end up running for re-election in 2018. He became a notable, outspoken senator against President Trump and a lot of his agenda, saying that it was too conservative or too radical for the time, having substantial times donating, substantial moments, endorsing Joe Biden, donating to certain Democratic campaigns to show his not so much support for the Republican Party. And that's largely what actually coined this term rhino for Jeff Flake. This probably wouldn't have been given to him back in 2012 when he was handing the Republican Party a seat in the state of Arizona. Absolutely not. But as he started to move away from the Trump wing of the Republican Party, and while his values very much still align with the previous Republican Party, the Republican Party sort of painted him as an enemy. Now, after John McCain's unfortunate passing, they have since turned their energy, not to anyone else, but really to Cindy McCain, his widow. And I think this largely has to do with the fact that she endorsed Joe Biden. Jeff Flake did as well, but many of them are angry about this position. Now, John McCain is definitely no stranger to censoring. He actually got censored back in 2014, so it's not something that is brand new to the idea, brand new idea to the McCain family. But still, the fact that this is happening really, it doesn't make any sense. First things first, she's not an elected official. John McCain makes sense because he was the incumbent senator. Jeff Flake also makes somewhat of sense just because he's the most previous Republican senator besides Martha McSally. John Kyle sort of counts, but he was just in for a very short period of time. Martha McSally, arguably so, for someone who served in 2 different Senate positions. But Cindy McCain, I don't see why she is this prime target for the Arizona GOP, and it's not just that the Maricopa County Republican Committee has voted on this, but the Arizona GOP has every intention of doing so as well. They have this supposed, proposed censorship vote that's going to take place, I believe, on the 23rd of January. So 3 days after Biden is inaugurated. And they are going to vote as to whether or not they believe that they should publicly condemn Cindy McCain or Jeff Flake. And if it does pass, then they will, of course, send out that statement. That's exactly what they'll do. But they did that for John McCain, and obviously it had not so much of an impact on his 2016 Senate election campaign, but I really just don't understand it. This Arizona GOP, especially under the chairwoman, Kelley Ward, she actually ran for Senate in 2016 and lost by double digits. Now, she won, I would say, better than other Republicans could, just because she was probably a very well-known name in the in the state of Arizona. But looking at the Republican primary results, she received 39% of the vote. She has no room to be speaking about winning, even a primary. But it isn't just that. Under her rule, number one, she indirectly called on the resignation of Doug Ducey, the incumbent governor, as a result of a representative publicly calling on the resignation of Doug Ducey. She has made numerous attacks against Republicans in this state, and now she's turning her attention towards McCain and Flake, the last 2 senators to actually win. The last 2 senators to win in the state of Arizona. Martha McSally, lost 2 races. She went 0 and 2 because she lost 2018 and then she lost 2020. John McCain won that seat that Martha McSally lost. He won it by 12 points, 13 points, actually. In 2012, Flake won by 3%, but that just so happens to be the same margin of victory for Kyrsten Sinema in 2018. So when I see the Republican Party sort of push away from the McCain family and push away from Jeff Flake, they're pushing away from the only Republicans who have had a history of winning statewide races here. Now, you could argue maybe they want to cling on to Donald Trump because he won in 2016, but the state flipped in 2020. There was 80% turnout in 2020, and Joe Biden won the state of Arizona. It doesn't make sense to me. Why would you push away the only people who have won races here in the past? It doesn't make sense. I understand you're probably upset they voted for Biden, endorsed Biden publicly, but at the same time, these are people that have a proven track record of winning in the state of Arizona. And, to pretty much try to censure them and say that they are publicly condemned by the Arizona GOP, rather than doing that, it's more in the benefit of the Republican Party in Arizona to take notes about what John McCain was able to do. He ran ahead of Trump by a very significant amount. Jeff Flake underperformed Mitt Romney in the state of Arizona. But come around 2018, in a Democratic wave year, Kyrsten Sinema was only able to match that margin of victory. In fact, it was less. So Jeff Flake has had one of the larger margins of victory. In 2020, even this margin of victory for Mark Kelley over Martha McSally, he defeated her by only 2.4%. So Jeff Flake defeated his Democratic opponent more than Mark Kelley was able to defeat Martha McSally, and more than Kyrsten Sinema was able to defeat Martha McSally. So Jeff Flake may have something that other Republicans in the state simply do not. Because first things first, they ran the same candidate twice and lost. Kelly Ward ran in 2016 and lost. And it looks as if they're trying to realign themselves with the more Trump-esque part of the Republican Party. But it's not just that the state flipped in 2020. The Arizona GOP ignored the very drastic shift from the 2012 presidential election. We can actually take a look at this margin of victory. It was nearly 10 points. It was a 9.03% margin of victory for Governor Romney, now Senator Romney. But in 2016, Donald Trump only defeated Hillary Clinton by under 5 points. He defeated her by 3.5%. Romney got a majority. Donald Trump did not. Even in the Democratic wave year in 2008, John McCain defeated Barack Obama in this state by a near identical margin as 2012, 8.48%. And keep in mind, Barack Obama kept North and South Dakota within single digits. He was 0.1 away from winning Missouri. He won Indiana. Montana was within 2 points. So 2008 was like an election like no other. But 2012, it returned back to being a more solid conservative state, suddenly, shifting to the right. And then 2016 rolls around, and it shifts to the left by a very significant amount. This is a 5.5% shift in favor of the Democratic Party. And the Arizona GOP ignored it. They jumped onto Donald Trump. They started nominating candidates very similar to him. And you know what happened? It wasn't just that they lost the Senate races in 2018 and 2020, but they also lost the presidency in 2020, and they lost the House races in 2018. We can actually take a look here if I can find it. It coincided with the House elections in this state. And it pretty much just ended up with the Democratic Party going from being in the minority to in the majority in terms of representation from the state of Arizona. And I think that largely has to do with the fact that the Arizona GOP has been pushing away from Republicans who know how to win in Arizona. They know how to win in Arizona. But because of their endorsement in one election, or because they believe that John McCain, Cindy McCain, Jeff Flake are too liberal for the state, well, chances are many Republicans identify very similarly to John McCain, very similarly to Jeff Flake. And if they're the ones that the GOP is saying, get out of our party, we don't want you here, chances are Republicans that probably align with them are going to be thinking the same exact thing. And that's exactly what happened. Joe Biden didn't win in 2020 based off purely liberal and moderate votes. Joe Biden was able to win over some of those more, moderate, but also sometimes more conservative Republicans who didn't like Donald Trump, who did not like how Donald Trump acted, voted third party in 2016. But then when faced between two actual options, they voted for Joe Biden. And that was something that we saw uniformly around the country. There wasn't as large of a third-party vote because this was not an election between the lesser of two evils. Joe Biden was positively viewed through the election season. Donald Trump was not. Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump were both in the negative double digits. So obviously 2016 was the election where we said voting between the lesser of two evils. That was not this election. The American people actually liked Joe Biden. And what do you know? If it's a liked candidate, they typically win. Now, I'm not going to argue that Jeff Flake was more liked than Donald Trump in the state of Arizona. He left with one of the lower approval ratings in the United States Senate. But that's largely due to the fact that this narrative of him being too liberal was pushing away conservatives, and Democrats aren't going to be inclined to say they support someone who's going to be an outgoing Republican senator. I mean, yes, Jeff Flake voted for Joe Biden, but I can't imagine too many Democrats would be full-on accepting open arms, inviting them to party election night viewings or whatever it might be. Jeff Flake isn't going to be easily welcomed into the Democratic Party. And now what we see is the Republican Party in Arizona is abandoning Jeff Flake, abandoning Cindy McCain, abandoned John McCain in 2014. In fact, the Arizona GOP pretty much shifted a lot of their efforts behind Kelly Ward, as you know, who ended up becoming a very notable name in the state of Arizona. But looking at the 2020 result, it's very clear something was off from 2016. That Mark Kelley tapped into a voter base that previous Democrats had not been able to. But also Martha McSally lost this race. You see, all of the statewide races in Arizona should be favored for the Republican Party, even after this election. This less than half a percentage point victory for Joe Biden does not declare Arizona by any means a lean, likely, or safe Democratic state. If anything, it's a toss-up entering into the next election. I think the Democrats are going to consistently improve their margin if they run candidates similar to Joe Biden and that are able to actually drive up turnout the same way Biden, more so actually I would say Trump in this election, just because there was a huge movement to get Donald Trump out of the presidency, out of the White House this election. But if the Democrats can replicate that, yes, their margins will improve. But you also have to acknowledge that the Republican Party still does better in a number of statewide races. Even in 2018, when the Democrats flipped the House in Arizona, not the state House, House of Representatives representation, they flipped this Senate seat, electing their first female senator from the state of Arizona in history. But Governor Doug Ducey won the governor's race in this state by a pretty considerable amount, very considerable amount, larger than the margin of victory for Kyrsten Sinema by a lot. So Republicans still do perform very well in the state of Arizona, but some of these more Trump-type Republicans simply just aren't doing well. Martha McSally tried to distance herself a little bit in 2018, but she still needed the endorsement of Trump. She still needed to campaign with him. In 2020, she was a lot more Trump backing because she thought that would be something that could bring her to victory. But Mark Kelley did significantly better than Joe Biden in this state. Joe Biden won by less than 0.4%. Mark Kelley won this race by 2.4%. So he did 2 points better than Joe Biden. It may not seem like a lot, but it is a lot. I mean, this is a 6 times the margin of victory, better than Joe Biden's. In fact, maybe 7. But looking at the results from now versus then, you do have to ask, what changed? The Republican Party in Arizona has fundamentally shifted away from being the more moderate, more Romney, McCain-esque type Republican Party to being a Trump shifted rightward wing of the Republican Party that is unrecognizable from where it was just a few years ago. And it doesn't make sense to me. This has never made sense to me. This has never made sense to plenty of Republicans in the state of Arizona. Because people realize that what's happening right now is a result of failed leadership within the Republican Party. You don't lose 2 Senate races by accident. You don't lose House control in the state of Arizona by accident. You don't lose the presidency in Arizona for the first time since 1996 by accident. This was orchestrated, but in a way the GOP did not see coming. They sabotaged themselves. Everyone else saw it coming. We see it happening right now, and they're continuing to do it. They are abandoning the only recognizable names in the state that have won previous elections. They are abandoning the only people who know how to win the state of Arizona now as Republicans, because it's clear Trump couldn't do it. His margin narrowed down 6 points from 2012 to 2016. Romney did much better. McCain did much better. McSally did horrible. McSally did horrible compared to John McCain. Compared to Jeff Flake, she didn't do that bad, but it was still a 6-point swing from Jeff Flake's victory in 2012. So what you're looking at is that all of these Republicans who were previously top names in the state of Arizona are now being abandoned in the name of Trumpism, abandoned in the name of a new revitalized Republican Party in Arizona. But the thing is, this new revitalized party has yet to show anyone that they can win a race. Has yet to show anyone they can win a race in the state of Arizona. And as the state starts to grow in population and the minority population increases, the Democratic vote share is only going to increase. And if the Republican Party cannot find a way to tap into those McCain, Romney-esque Republicans the same way they did in the past, and the GOP in Arizona seems to be pushing away from that at 10 times speed, well, it's going to be very difficult to win statewide in the future. And the thing is, it's not just in Arizona. This is happening in Georgia as well. You don't lose Georgia for the first time since 1992 by accident. You don't lose both Senate races by accident. Georgia and Arizona have shifted almost the same exact amounts, election after election. And this year they flipped. It had to do largely with the mismanagement of the Republican Party, and neither GOP in Georgia or Arizona looks as if they're going to be course correcting. They don't look as if they are going to be course correcting in the state of Arizona. They don't look as if they're going to be course correcting in the state of Georgia. But this video is about Arizona, so we're just going to focus on that. And that's something that the Republican Party is probably going to look back in maybe 10, 20 years when Arizona is a lean, likely Democratic state and wonder, where did we go wrong? Well, it all started with one person. One person who has shown that his endorsement loses candidate races. That while he may have won in 2016, he did not win in 2020. Yet the Republican Party still, direly wants to believe in Arizona that going through the Trump-type strategy is the way to win, because it didn't work in 2018. It didn't work for those 5 Republican candidates in those House races. It didn't work for the 2020 Senate race. And it didn't even work for the man himself. So everything that I've seen so far, I don't get it. I don't think many people understand it. But the GOP is free to do with what they want. But it's honestly just such a poorly calculated move. But, that's going to be their consequence. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my post 2020 election videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.